Hi, Rena.
Hello, Dr. Bach.
You look like a goddess right now. You have a goddess vibe and appearance thing going. So
Great.
nice sartorial choices.
Thank you very
Um,
much.
Welcome everyone to a free association conversation between Rena K and myself, Dr. Bach Ho. We're both organic intelligence coaches. We help people reduce suffering and increase capacity to handle more in life with ease using the protocols of organic intelligence. In these live stream free association conversations, Rena and I try to aim both at people who are completely new to organic intelligence and people who already know its basics. We try to find the balance. Today, our topic is if I don't hold myself together, I'll fall apart.
Hmm.
I am thinking of my clients and some of them have serious chronic illness, chronic pain. And I, for this topic of if I don't hold myself together, I'll fall apart. I feel it. I feel it with my clients. So some of these clients, they're very severe, challenging cases, like very severe pain, very severe illness, debilitating, and at the same time, they want to heal and live. And it does require, I think, a lot of hold yourself together.
Hmm.
And that's how they're coming in because they've usually by the time they get to me, they've been through a bunch of different modalities, doctors, procedures, and then limited effect. And then will this organic intelligence thing work? And so they're already on to I have to just stay positive and do my exercise. I have to do my A through ABC, A through Z treatment plan. I got to stay on top of everything physically and psychologically to survive moment to moment to cope with my illness and pain, or else I'll fall apart. At the same time, though, they're wanting to see what this organic intelligence approach, which emphasizes doing nothing. A lot more can be said there, but I'll just keep it at that for now. So it's this both and like they're coming in. I have to do all my treatment stuff and really control everything to survive. And what is this organic intelligence thing about doing nothing is the way to heal? By the way, doing nothing is just kind of a poetic thing. It's not anyway. I'll move on. Get to that later. So and doing nothing works. Let me just I, I, when I get really challenging cases, challenging clients, I love the clients. I mean the difficult cases of pain and illness. I wonder, oh my God, is organic intelligence going to work? I mean, they've been through everything under the sun, all these treatment plans. Will this ease approach work? And it does if you do it right and you pace it in over time. Working with clients, trying to prime ease, comfort, letting go, and it just works. I just have to say that. I mean, pain goes down, anxiety goes down, migraines disappear. I mean, it's just pretty amazing that this stuff happens with this work. The topic, reminding myself, is if I don't hold myself together, I'll fall apart. Some of my clients just came up as I said that in the beginning of our live stream right now. And do I have a point? Do I have an overall lesson or point before I hand it to you? I guess it would be yeah, sometimes you have to hold it together or you'll fall apart. Yes. And sometimes your biology is ready for something else. How to tell the difference is a tricky question, but I'll leave it at
Hmm.
that. Yeah.
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 Yeah, it's so interesting. I'm thinking to the other end of the spectrum. So it's interesting that you and I have very different images of clients that come to mind who say that.
Okay.
So on the other end of the spectrum would be clients that feel as if their life is demanding so much of them. So, single mom who's trying to do the best for her kids and work and get meals and this idea that I have to go, 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 or my life will fall apart. And there's an inability to allow the system to be able to let go kind of like we were talking about last week, it's hard to relax. And so, in the same vein, if I let myself relax, if I let go, if I take a path of ease, then I will fall apart because my life will fall apart. And so it can show up on either end of the spectrum, I think, in terms of how it looks to us as practitioners. But either way, we know that there's a lot of high intensity energy in the system. That anybody who might be saying, if I let myself go, then I'll fall apart. Anybody who's coming and saying that, we know that on some level, the intensity that they're experiencing, even if they're chronically ill and are spending a lot of time in bed, that would be a post, experience of have the system having been so overwhelmed for so long that that's the option that the biology goes into. And so,
May I ask? Go ahead. Go ahead.
go for it.
I just wanted to. You said our differences in the clients that we thought of. Could you say a bit more about your thought that they're on a different spectrum? I know my case primarily was my clients with chronic pain, chronic illness, and then yours was single mom. I have to handle everything or else I'll fall apart. But how exactly were they different to you? I know they're obviously different in what I just described. My clients have chronic illness and chronic pain. Yours, I presumably don't, not that level. But what did you mean by like
Well,
different spectrum or?
right. I would say on the level of available energy. So one would be there's a lot. So the case of my client that I was thinking of, or clients, plural, there's still a lot of energy, barely, but there's a lot of energy in the system. So there's a lot of, say, the fight flight energy. There's a lot of charge. And yet that charge is a somewhat chaotic, disorganized charge. And what you're describing in terms of chronic illness and chronic pain is oftentimes then there's a lack of charge in the system. Like they're feeling like they just don't have anything. So, and it might be slightly different than you're thinking of, but I'm thinking of clients also that I know that end up having to spend a lot of time sleeping in bed, resting, because
Hmm.
their biology doesn't have a lot of that extra charge in it. And so they're also feeling like, hey, if I don't do A, B, C, D, and this whole list of things, if I don't get myself healing really fast, then I'm already not working. It's just going to go longer. I don't have the finances. I'm putting strain on other people. Like my whole life will continue to fall apart, is what I notice people like that saying.
Interesting. I'm not sure where I'm going to go with this, but that's very interesting. Okay, because the clients I'm thinking of with the chronic illness and chronic pain. Okay, I get how when you say chronic illness and chronic pain, you might associate that with low energy and bed bound. In this case, these clients have a lot of energy. It's just pain energy.
Okay, right?
So I feel like I'm getting too like off topic or something. But anyway, but they have. Well, I'm not sure what exactly the topic. We don't have to free association, but that they they have energy, eh, but it's pain. I mean, they're in constant pain and discomfort. Oh, actually, but they don't have fatigue. So I guess I don't have any clients with chronic fatigue right now. It's um uh but and they feel they have to use that energy, even though it's pain energy,
Mm,
to survive moment to moment. And I'm saying that is horrific and sucks, and it's just what you have to do sometimes to get by while we're waiting for the two conditions of orientation and pleasure.
mm,
For people who are new, according to organic intelligence, there are two conditions that will enable the biology to sort itself out: orientation, which is automatic connection to the environment through the senses, and pleasure, which means any kind of feeling better, including feeling less bad. And we're looking for emergence of any of those, and encouraging those in the biology to over time allow the symptoms to fade. Okay.
right.
Anyway, so I feel like it wasn't so important for me to just get on a thing about what your clients versus my clients and differences, chronic fatigue, chronic illness versus not. But anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Well,
Yeah.
I think it's worthwhile because what we're looking at is either way, like however the symptoms are presenting themselves, either way, it's a system that has more intensity than it has capacity to deal with. So whether that be pain, whether
Hmm.
that be the responsibilities of life, whether that be a chronic illness that keeps you bedbound, no matter what those circumstances are, they're all signs of, in some way, the biology is unable to process all that has happened and is happening to it in the present moment. And what
Yeah.
we're suggesting is that finding not, well, to not overload the system with more things to do, which is the automatic tendency, right? Because if I don't do all these things, I'm going to fall apart. So the tendency is I got to do more and do more. And what we're suggesting here is that the opposite, doing less, might actually, and I would say both of us wouldn't say might, will actually allow the system to organize better, quicker, even though it looks like you're not doing a whole lot.
Okay. What? I'll explain. Why am I laughing? You opened with you had a different thought than I had. You know how we have different thoughts from each other often, and what you just said about often we have to do less to get better. I was thinking, yeah, that's the base, or that's the obvious common sense case that everyone knows about. So kind of thought we were talking about the less obvious case of people who are overactive, but they actually can't relax. So we have to kind of help the overactivity, even though that's kind of dangerous. Sorry, Ren, I feel like I'm throwing
Hey,
bombs, but
no,
I just
I think
thought,
that's great.
oh, okay, so let me just so what you said is completely correct. I mean, yes, good. Like if there's someone who feels that they have to hold themselves together all the time or they'll fall apart, in maybe the main case, I'm putting main in quotes because I'm not sure what I mean by that, but in the main case, the 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 desirable thing to do is, can you try to do less? Like, try to try to do less and then see if you feel better. And I thought, yeah, that is the main obvious-ish case. And I'm thinking of the case in which, for example, just an anecdote from one of the trainings, you have a high-powered lawyer. She comes in, she says, I work 80 hours a week. I'm never happy. I need to control everything. If you tell me to relax, I'm going to kill myself. Now help. I mean, so that's the client coming to you. So she says if you tell her to relax, she'll kill herself. So and then Steve was saying, then the question is, how do you help such a client? And then his answer, and then he offered the idea, you help her get more control. So yes, her current problem, I guess, one of her current problems is overactivity, over control, and she's threatening that she'll kill herself if you try to get her to let go of control. So the our treatment, I guess, would be more control. Let's get you more control. All right, I'm going to stop there and let you. It's
Well, yeah, and
yeah,
and
yeah,
that's, in a sense, when a person says they have to control stuff, it's because they're feeling out of control. And so in
yeah,
some real respects, they don't actually have control in life. And so, yes, having some kind of ways of dampening the feelings of not being in control of life, that would be helpful and beneficial. And at the same time, we're looking for avenues, not necessarily to quote unquote relax, but we're looking for avenues where that which is neutral has a place to come in, or that which is pleasurable. And pleasurable sometimes is going to be, say, high intensity. So if this person who's a high-powered lawyer, I think you said,
yeah,
and so they have a lot on their plate and they feel like they're running, running, going, 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 and that to let go and let down would mean, failing at their job in some ways. Well, then, yeah, we're gonna have to help support them in being able to do things in a way that brings some more ease. And there may be ways that what they're doing actually does feel good to them. So they may actually find
yeah.
enjoyment in the high pressure. They may have moments where that's there, and that would be the thing that we would be joining with, where the pleasure already exists, regardless of what their life is looking like.
Thank you. Yes. and my case was on the extreme end she's saying that she may end her life if you tell her to relax, and that's not so normal that a client would not so usual that a client would say that. But yes, you're saying
Other than hyperbolically.
yeah, right. Um, go where the pleasure is. If there's pleasure in relaxation, go there. If there's pleasure in continued amping up, even though you kind of know that you're doing it too much and it will burn out, but if you know you're going to do it, you might as well just go with it and see what pleasure's there, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Um, in your, I have two roads in mind. I'm not sure which one is better. I'll just select one. So I remember having so a client. She's chronic pain, chronic discomfort, chronic illness, and one thing she wants to do is stay positive, and she puts a lot of mental energy
Mm.
into staying positive. And I have here and there gently suggested, what if you don't try to be positive because it sounds like it's a lot of energy, and what if you just be negative and then but I think that when I've done that, the idea of allowing herself to be negative and hopeless about her condition is quite unpleasant. And so no, I think I have to try to be positive. And I still don't know what is it's tricky work sometimes. Like I don't know what is the right optimal, like, do I just drop it? Like she wants to look, she says, I want to be positive, I want to put energy into it. I feel like that's going to help me. So do I just, yeah, okay, I'm going to go with that. Like you say you need to be positive, you don't want to let go of that. Okay, let's do that.
Mm.
And sometimes I feel if you could be a little bit negative, it could help sometimes, I think, but it's tricky. It's tricky. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right. Right. And understandably so, because if one were to feel the depths of their, say, grief for the illness that they're struggling through, or anger about it, or concern and whatnot, well, it might be that those emotions would get too intense. And it would be too intense. We wouldn't want that amount of energy being utilized. And so, okay, what's taking up more energy? Staying positive or going into the depths of despair? And so it may very well be that staying somewhat positive is super beneficial, even though it binds up a lot of energy and a lot of energy needs to be used. And so, of course, attuning to wherever the client is super
Yeah.
important. But there is ways in which finding again that which might be more neutral is helpful. So a client, so it might not be
Yeah.
between positive and negative. It may be between, oh, I don't have to kind of artificially prop myself up. And what if I didn't artificially prop myself up? What would I actually be experiencing right now? And if a person has orientation on board and they're able to keep their attention somewhat in the environment, the external environment, then that might be like super awesome. And we're looking for both the, not so much to stay in one state, but can the system oscillate? Can the system acknowledge that, yeah, this situation is not great, and here's other things that, came about because of this? And to me, that's real being realistic. It's not trying to be positive, trying to be negative. It's just acknowledging the reality of the moment. And we want to be able to see when the biology can do that oscillation of acknowledging goes, wow, that was really hard. The fact that that car accident happened and that changed my life was really hard. And all these people have been supporting me, and I've met some really great people, and I've started a new career as a result of that because I couldn't do my old one. And I can see that these things are also there too. That's to me would probably be the healthiest state because you're not trying to be one thing or the other.
I think you're saying ultimately a goalpost is access to positivity, negativity, and neutrality, and a harmonious movement, ebb and flow among these.
Yeah.
Yeah, as a
Yeah, I
sign
think
of,
so.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. Yeah. May, may I ask you some questions? Return to the topic of getting away from the chronic illness and chronic pain case, which I know I opened with, so I kind of weighted the conversation in that direction. But just in general, people who have the thought, if I don't hold myself together, I'll fall apart. Can I ask you, for the clients that you may be thinking of, um, are they more worried about external things falling apart or they're internal, or is it just both and equal? And you speak to that? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's for some people it is the external. And in those cases, we don't want life to fall apart in a sense. For other people, it's just the internal. And so I don't want to let down and cry, right? So some people it's just like that's just to be able to allow the system to let down and to have a lot of emotions would be an experience of falling apart to them. And in either case, we're not, unlike a lot of therapeutic approaches that encourage falling apart, right? So I had a colleague, an organic intelligence colleague, recently tell me about going to another modality that she used to be connected to, and by going to that other modality, watched a demo. And in the demo, the person is sobbing, and everything we would think of when we think of falling apart, and just couldn't get themselves back together, and just like high intensity emotion. And that was encouraged, that was celebrated, that was considered that's a good session because of this high intensity emotion that came out. And afterwards the person's like, well, yeah, I think I feel better. And part of what in organic intelligence we we don't consider that necessarily a good thing. Right? To have
Right.
falling apart, or to encourage falling apart, or I think even some therapeutic coach practitioners, there can be a tendency to think, wow, I've done a really good job because my client is having this big emotion. Or there's even some that have some voyeuristic kind of appreciation. It's like, oh, that's good, and they watch it. And that's just not organic intelligence. Like, we don't want to push people towards falling apart, just like we don't want to push people to be hyper controlled, right? Either
Yeah.
way, we want to encourage the biology to find its own rhythms, its own oscillations, because in organic intelligence, we think the main issue is the biology being out of sync with itself in some way, that it's not flowing. It's not, there's all this internal intensity when the external is fine. The external is not fine, but there's this, like I'm going to pretend that it is. Like, these are all examples of not being in sync with itself and with reality. And that's what we're looking to bring on board, is that capacity, like you said, to be able to include both
And orientation is everything.
and orientation is
The
everything.
to just come back to basics, and for people who are new, and I'm just trying to get back to fundamentals. Orientation, automatic connection to the environment is everything. And I would say that the attraction to intensity, like in that demo, people are celebrating the breaking down. I find that the attraction to intensity is still, even among organic intelligence coaches who are training, whom I interact with, there's still this attraction to intensity that shows up where they sometimes they seem to think orientation is cool. I'm down with orientation. But when is the real work going to happen? The sensation stuff. I don't see the sensation stuff. And when they see the sensation stuff happening, they, oh, that's the real work. That's so moving and powerful. And then orientation was just a platform to get to the falling apart, but falling apart organic intelligence style. But I'm no, where orientation is everything. It's yes, seeing someone cry and have sensations and have a deep inhale, deep exhale, and goosebumps. That's very attractive. I mean, we're attracted to those intense feelings, those moving feelings. And the orientation is very boring, yes, but that is everything because that means intensity is not too high. That means you're synced and you can process what you need to process easily.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And the more we get that on board with people, the more that happens, the less intense their circumstances will feel to them. So recently heard somebody who struggles with chronic illness say, "Oh, I find myself I'm starting to read different kinds of books." Like my books used to all be about how do you heal? How do you get better? How do I change my thinking? How do I change my outlook? Spiritual books, physical books, and that was the predominant kind of focus, as opposed to, well, what if I just read a novel because I liked it? Like, what would that do for me, right? Or what would it be like just to spend my time engaged in activities that are not about fixing myself in one way or another? And how much people discover when they do that, when they drop the high intensity, I have to fix myself because there's something wrong with me, as that softens through the orientation and through pleasure, then their capacity to manage what's happening just starts becoming easier. And they start making different choices that they didn't realize were available to them. They start noticing, wow, my choice is not only, accept my spouse's behavior or get a divorce. Maybe when my spouse is behaving in that certain way that bothers me and is overwhelming for me, I just go out to a coffee
Mm.
shop, and when they're done, I'll come back, right? People don't think of those other options when they are in these binds of having to fix the self or fix the other. And so they start seeing other possibilities for themselves when the biology becomes stabilized in the connection to the external environment and the pursuit of pleasure. And so life just becomes easier as a result of that. And when life becomes easier, when the intensity comes down, that's when the biology can do healing work if it needs to do healing work. That's when new creative solutions will come to it that had never
Yeah.
emerged before, right? And all of a sudden an example came to my mind for myself that when I was going through so much of my pain and there's so much intensity, one of the things is I'm also a type 1 diabetic, and in the experience, my insulin pump broke and I was gonna have to get a new one, and that's gonna cost a whole bunch of money, and money I didn't have. And normally, because I've been doing all of this work in terms of orientation, especially, and pleasure, because I was like, every day, what's a bright spot? What might be a bright spot of today? And as I was doing that work, that whole situation of the insulin pump breaking, suddenly in that moment, I had a feeling of upset, kind of standard upset for myself, for about 10, 15 seconds. And I can remember the feeling of, oh, and here are my options, right? And I came up with three or four possible options for myself that I would have never thought of before. And one of them worked. It was good enough, and it gave me the time I needed to get the money I needed to get a brand new one. And so all of that to say
Yeah.
that it was as my biology was stabilizing that then new solutions would come to me that wouldn't ed when I would just be like drowning in the upset. And it was a very significant moment. I remember where I was, what I was doing. I was actually changing a light bulb at the moment and just going, wow, that's different. Like, when did that shift happen? And it happened somewhere along the line as I was doing orientation, pleasure, orientation, pleasure, orientation, pleasure. And so that's what
Right.
I guess I'd like to say is yes, we don't want to try to either overmanage our situation or undermanage our situation. And when we do these basics that organic intelligence is suggesting, when we do that regularly, not as just one more thing to do on your list of A to Z things to do, but probably as the primary thing to do, um, that as that happens, your biology changes. As your biology changes, your capacity to manage your current circumstances, including high intensity, becomes easier.
Not trying to fix yourself in a highly conscious, effortful, or intentional sense, but rather building an orientation and pleasure, which are natural, pleasant, easeful things, just building that in over time, resulting in increased biological capacity, resulting in these surprise moments where you're able to more easily handle what you need to handle. Um, Period. That's the end of the sentence, where you're more easily able to handle what you need to handle, right?
Right, exactly.
And I had a nascent. I know we're coming on time, and there's a thought that I had while you were speaking that it's pre-articulate. I feel like I'm in danger zone because what if I don't get it across clearly? But I'm going to go for it. Okay, I'm going to go for it. This idea, our topic, uh, if I don't hold myself together, I'll fall apart. So this is a person who really believes in holding themselves together and really believes in the A through Z efforting, teach me skills, teach me techniques. And the idea I want to trot out is it may be that when you try to hold yourself together, that's what's going to make you fall apart, actually. And the example in my mind, I'm going to return to the chronic illness, chronic pain, and I know that I weighted the conversation towards that, but it's just real for me right now because clients and brain retraining programs, and so if you'll bear with me, I'm not sure who I've even said that to. Um, so in with chronic illness, chronic pain, the in the brain retraining world, they'll say your pain is real. Any doctors who say, well, your tests were negative, there's no fracture, you must not be in pain, it's all in your imagination, they're gaslighting you, your pain is real. So we just want to validate you on your pain being real. And here are our brain retraining techniques to help you reduce the pain over time. And one thing we're going to ask you to do is challenge your beliefs. Challenge your belief that you'll be in pain forever. Activate your curiosity. When I encounter that thought, I think you're admitting that the person's pain is real, but you think and so they can't just decide to turn off their pain. You're admitting that, and you're saying that the people who deny that are gaslighting the person. You're admitting that, but you think you can just tell a person, okay, your habits of being negative and thinking you're hopeless and your pain will never go away. I'm going to ask you to just not do that and be positive and hopeful and optimistic and activate your curiosity. But the move of saying activate your curiosity is just as invalid, I think. I'm scared of saying this because I haven't thought it through, but is just as invalid as saying deactivate your pain. If you're going to say you can't tell a person to deactivate their pain, then don't tell a person to activate their curiosity. They are where they are. Rena, I'm sorry, I'm not sure where I'm going with this, but I feel like it was
Well,
an
I think it's
important thing to say. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, no, I think it's really, really powerful
yeah,
because again, this gets deeper and deeper into, all of the ways that we are trying to fix things. And that's the phrase I often will use is and so saying, just activate your curiosity about, well, maybe it's possible that someday you will be able to get out of here and you need to open up to that possibility. And that's like telling a person, well, change your thoughts. Your thoughts are, I'm stuck like this. I've been like this for 10 years. I've done all these things. Nothing's helped. And so, well, that's just what the thoughts, that's my reality. And the thought that's anything else is trying to pretend, like pretend your pain's not there, pretend like you don't have thoughts.
yes. Thank you. Yes,
Right. And again, this is where we try to in organic intelligence, we're almost trying to bypass that whole scenario by coming back to the basics of what does it mean to be human. What it means to be human is to be oriented, to notice what's in your environment. Now, all of our thoughts can keep us from doing that, or our emotions, or even the sensations, especially pain sensations, they keep us very internalized to our experience.
yeah.
But part of being human is having our attention out here and seeing what's there. And yes, it's not that exciting. Oftentimes, it's just neutral. I'm looking at the same sunflowers I looked at yesterday and the day before and the day before and the day before. And yet, well, there's actually, it still is pleasing to look at the color yellow. And yeah, I'm going to take that in and I'm enjoying it. Oh, and there's a new rose. Right, that's pretty cool, right? So, and it could be just following the fly, and the pattern of the fly and following that, all of that kind of seemingly inconsequential kinds of things helps the biology reconnect with neutral and what's right here, right now, and get out of the internal states that are high intensity. It gets us back into lower intensity states. And if the biology is going to heal and reorganize, it has to do that through lower intensity states.
And thank you. And orientation works. And if you're suspicious, just activate your curiosity. Just kidding. But I will just say, but it does work with chronic illness and chronic pain. The clients, they orient. I help them orient, and it's this, there's like profound healing happening. One more example, I remember a client, high powered guy, founder, CEO, Harvard and Oxford educated, knows a lot, has been to a lot of different therapists and doctors, and it says to me, you're just saying look at objects. And I said, yes. And he was very like not in, but he did. He just looked at objects and he found it incredibly banal. I mean, of course, he just, and it worked. It worked. I mean, capacity increased. So orientation works. Activate your curiosity. Just kidding.
Well, and I want to add one more point. I know
Okay.
we're way over, but one more point to that is when we're doing something new like this, and we're doing something that our biology is not as familiar with, although orientation is always happening in the background, but we're bringing it forward in our attention a little bit more. When that's new, it is really helpful doing that with somebody else or others in a group. And so doing it with a coach and feeling the experience with a coach. I run groups through organic intelligence as well as other kinds of things. And so when people are coming together and are doing this kind of banal activity of orientation with others, there's something about that that makes it a little easier to do and to drop the skepticism of that. And so I
Um,
just want to name that because people might be trying to do that, might find that difficult to do, and that's where it's really great to connect up with a organic intelligence coach to get some support in your biology till that becomes more, easeful, and then your biology will start doing it, much more on its own.
yeah. I often feel mixed when, even though orientation and pleasure are everything, and I repeat orientation all the time, I often feel mixed when I advocate orientation because I hesitate saying people should practice orientation. One reason for that is it may be unpleasant. Another reason is it may not actually be what they're doing. They may think they're practicing orientation, but if there's, depending on the effort involved, the unpleasantness, it may not be orientation. So orientation is in a sense a very obvious thing. At the same time, the experience of automatic orientation is profoundly different from the experience of efforted orientation.
Right. And that's
Uh,
where
yeah.
coaches and whatnot can be super supportive.
So, do you have a one-liner or something on, okay, the people who are struggling with, if I if I don't if I if I if I don't hold myself together, I'll fall apart. Do you have like a quick, if you, sorry, no, I don't mean to pressure, but anything, uh,
Well, first thing I'll be like is you're right. That might happen.
yeah. Okay, nice. We can leave it there. Like, yeah, you may fall apart.
Right. And we're gonna, our job is to kind of bring the attention over here and build this over
Mm,
here, which is orientation and pleasure, until your biology doesn't have to fall apart anymore.
sounds good to me. To learn more about either of us and the coaching we offer, there will be links in the description. To learn more about organic intelligence, you can read my writing on Substack, link in the description, and explore my video library on YouTube, including the short videos. I meticulously craft my Substack posts and YouTube videos to present substantive content that's direct, clear, and concise. Thank you as usual, Rena, and I'll see you next time.
Sounds great. Thanks.